Some New York residents have welcomed a landmark decision by the Vatican that Roman Catholic priests can administer blessings to same-sex couples. They say this is a step towards the church acknowledging same-sex marriages.
Long overdue. You know, if Jesus said love was love, then love is love, isn't it? We've been together 41 years. So, and we're married.
I think the church should go and do allow same-sex marriages. I think that would be a big step for the society. I think that would be awesome if they were able to do that.
I think this is a big, big step, and I wouldn't push it right now because I think it's such a big step that I would take a blessing. You know, since I'm already married, I would take a blessing.
Okay, let's talk more on the significance of this. We're joined now by Outright International spokesperson, Matuba Mahlatje. Good to have you, Matuba, and thank you very much for coming on this afternoon. Pope Francis, since his ascendance, I suppose, in 2013 to this position, has been trying to make the Catholic Church more welcoming to the LGBTQI plus community without changing their moral doctrine. Do you think this is yet another one of those moves?
So thank you, Thabo, for having me, and good afternoon. Let me just give a bit of context, introduce Outright International to your viewers so they have context as to why our voice is so important in this very important conversation. And in short, Outright is a non-profit organization founded in 1990 by Julie Dorff, and we have a presence in 18 countries headquartered in New York. And we always work in partnership with groups in countries around the world. And in those partnerships, we create and we amplify voices from around the world because we think that the world needs to hear from activists on the front lines about what LGBTIQ lives look like. And to answer your question, we, as Outright International, we see this document that the Vatican has released as a good development, you know, but we would like to see this kind of stance being clear at the United Nations level, because we have so many countries that are signatories to binding human rights treaties, the Vatican included, but their actions do not reflect their country's support for human rights. And in this instance, I'm talking about LGBTIQ rights. And I want to take a quote, actually, that really inspired me from this document that the Pope Francis released. You know, the doctrinal, it says the doctrinal or disciplinary schemes, especially when they lead to a narcissistic and authoritarian elitism, whereby instead of evangelizing, one analyzes and classifies others, and instead of opening the door to grace, one exhausts his or her energies in inspecting or verifying. So, and this is something that we've been seeing, that people are spending their energies on wanting to affirm us when we are already affirmed. And I think the Vatican is actually playing a catch-up, because earlier this year at Outright, we released a report documenting the Catholic Church in the context of Malta, the country Malta, where there's an NGO called focusing on LGBTIQ rights and faith. And through this organization's work with clergy and the Catholic Church, LGBTIQ experiences were better humanized from a faith perspective. So it will be easy to embrace the Vatican's new and welcome stance in places like Malta, where the work on inclusivity started a long time ago. But this perhaps will inspire countries like or churches in South Africa, where Christianity came through colonialism, but and maybe this will inspire them to be a bit more decisive in their approach to LGBTIQ lives. And I would like to acknowledge, Thabo, the work that has been done here in South Africa by the Jesuit Institute of South Africa, led by Father Russell Pollitt. And I mean, this is a welcome stance, and we think it's a direction, it's a step in the right direction, and it's very welcome.
The new ruling opening a possibility of blessing of couples. However, the document also making it clear that this is in no way to be confused with the sacrament of heterosexual marriages it's adding. So still, I suppose, saying it's a simple blessing, not a church that is necessarily outright saying that it would give a sacramental blessing towards homosexual couples.
in my view, these are just semantics. I mean, we saw when Prince Charles got married to Camilla, he had to have two separate services, though, a civil one and the one of a blessing. So I would even go as far as saying that we're on the status of a royal like Prince Charles. But you know, the church, where stands like this from the church like the Catholic and coming from a leader like Pope Francis, to in the South African context perhaps, and for somebody like me even who grew up in church, religion is politicized so much, but for somebody like me who wanted to get married in the church where I grew up, and I couldn't, it means a lot. And I'll tell you a personal story if you don't mind. When my husband died in 2017, we were both Lutheran, him and I, and we wanted a Lutheran funeral. We couldn't get one because the congregation didn't want to. They wanted to remove so much of me in his life in the process of on the problem of the funeral. And we were so lucky enough that we had an acquaintance, a friend who was a Lutheran reverend pastor, who came to preside. So what I'm trying to say, Thabo, is that a lot of erasure happens where religion is concerned in the lives of LGBTIQ people. But I had a funeral for my husband where, I was acknowledged as the life partner who loved him to death, who loved him and because we made those vows to each other. So whether or not they are pushing for recognition same as straight couples, for me it's insignificant. But I really appreciated the direction, and for many of other people, and it becomes South Africa and the rest of the world will become an inspiration to other countries where what's happening in the Vatican right now is unthinkable in places like Uganda, in places like Ghana, in places like Kenya. And I might add, like in the Lutheran Church here in South Africa, there are clergy, some of whom are my friends, are themselves identify as queer, but cannot come out because the church still has the key to this invisible closet. And the same in the Methodist Church and the Anglican Church, But I suppose we should probably focus on data-driven information about how opposition to LGBTQ rights is deeply rooted in religion, not limited to Christianity. Homophobia and transphobia is influenced by religious beliefs, which also affect other institutions as education and the media. And education, I'm picking up on a story that happened not so long ago here in South Africa of Sibusiso Mbatha. You may have read that story on your auto cue, Thabo. A grade 6 pupil at Kehlelihle Primary School in Thokoza, Ekurhuleni, died by suicide at home because a reportedly ridiculed that boy and made a lesson about that child's gender expression and identity. And by the way, this is a child who was loved and accepted by his own family at home. So you see the many layers that come with religion, Christianity, and the belief that can complicate the lives of people, as it has with Sibusiso Mbatha's family.
Matuba Mahlatje, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on this afternoon, speaking on behalf there of Outright International.